Hello, Central Indiana Christian Singles. We are actually not in Indiana at the moment. We're at Niagara Falls in New York, and Heather Dollarhide is the single of the month. Heather, start off by telling us, how long have you been a Christian, and how did you get saved?
I've been raised with the belief in God my whole life, and in college was the time that I really started going to church consistently, and I was baptized while I was in college as well. So that was probably the time I really got saved, when I realized this is where I want to go and where I'm being led in life.
Mm-hmm. And let's say that one of your non-Christian friends comes up to you, maybe he's an atheist or something, and he says, Heather, what does it mean to be a Christian? How would you answer that question?
I actually work with somebody that is an atheist, so we have these conversations. For me, firstly, it's living a better life. Push comes to shove and say we're wrong and Jesus never existed and he wasn't the Messiah, then what do we have to lose as Christians for believing and for trying to live a better life and being kinder to other people? Whereas if the opposite were true and we didn't believe and we denounced Jesus and then come to find out, yes, he really did exist, and now we go to get to heaven and we can't get in because we didn't live our lives for him. So that's one of those things that I always try to simplify it, because I do work with a lot of engineers that have a very scientific mind and everything happens for a reason, and it's science, there's no miracles. And so for me, it's just part of being a Christian is being kinder and loving people regardless of their choices in life.
Mm-hmm. So both you and I believe the Bible is God's word. Mm-hmm. A lot of people say that it's just a bunch of fairy tales or they're fabricated stories. But since you know it's God's word and you've studied it, do you have any favorite scriptures that really encourage you or lift you up?
My absolute favorite is Jeremiah 29:11. I remember when God started hammering it in my head. I was going through a very, very challenging time in my life. I just ended my last relationship. I had moved back home. I was unemployed for the first time in 10, 12 years. It was a very hard adjustment, but it's one I'm thankful for now. But during that time, I would scroll Facebook a lot, and I was applying for all these different jobs, and I kept getting on my scrolls Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, they are to prosper you, not to harm you. And I remember I was out at lunch for my birthday, and with a couple of friends, and we went into Streamcliff winery, and one of the barns that they use for events, there are 3 different doors to go into, and we went into the one in the middle and it was open, and right there as soon as you walked in was Jeremiah 29:11 and this huge beautiful display. And I just think, if I would have walked in the other door, it would not have had the impact it had as soon as I walked in. And that was when I realized that God was really telling me, hey, you're going through a tough time, but this is to help you, this is to prosper you, it's not to hurt you. And it also helped develop more trust in the journey.
That's an awesome verse, and a lot of people have that as their favorite verse. Where did you grow up, and what was your childhood like, Heather?
I grew up in southeastern Indiana, so North Vernon, Columbus area. I've pretty much lived there my whole life. I did live in Ohio for a few years and loved it. But when that came to an end, I moved back home. And my childhood was good. I think we all have our ups and downs and opportunities. But overall, my parents have been together, and they've taught me a lot of things to do in a marriage, as well as things that I don't want to do in a marriage. But I think everybody can learn those things from their parents, whether they're positive or there's opportunities or things like that. But of course, they always say hindsight is 20/20. So you just have to take the good with the bad and learn from every experience you have, whether it's positive or an opportunity.
And I got to meet your mom on the trip we did to
Key West.
Key West and the Florida Keys.
Yes.
I got to hang out with your mom for several days. That was nice. So you and I have been on more than one trip together. Mm-hmm. Now tell everybody in CICS, what was this trip like? There was a lot of people who wanted to come, mm-hmm. but couldn't come. They might come if we do it again next year. What did we do on this trip, and what did you like about it the most?
I planned my trip a little bit differently, just because I did bring my niece and nephew. So I added another day or two, which one is doing schoolwork and the other one is playing a game. But I pulled them out of school for 3 days. My sister got it cleared with their principal, and their principal actually approved it. We came up, and I decided that I wanted to take them into Canada. I had never left the U.S. before, so this weekend was the first time I've ever left the U.S. And my niece and nephew have never gone, so they thought that would be fun. We went to the Toronto Zoo, which was an interesting zoo. Not my favorite, but I'm biased. Cincinnati's always my favorite. And then we did that on Friday, came down here, met up with everybody from CICS. And then Saturday, we got to do the Maid of the Mist, which was so much fun. It was absolutely amazing because it was so rocky, and of course watching everybody try to get their sea legs together to stand upright. And then getting so wet from the falls and just hearing the rush of all these millions of gallons of water. Afterwards, we did the Cave of the Winds, which, because it's kind of an off season a little bit, it's not quite into the summer season yet. A little bit of it was shut down, but they explained that in the winter that if they leave everything out, the ice destroys it. So in order to save it and save cost of materials, they just take part of it down. But you still get really, really close to the falls, and it's really pretty that way. You learn a lot of the history about Niagara. So there's more to it than just, oh look, there's millions of gallons of water rushing over this edge. There's a lot of history that goes with it, even with Native Americans and the Iroquois. What else did we do? We ate lunch. I don't remember after that. It's been so busy. And then today I took my niece and nephew to go see the elephant twins over in Syracuse. So that was about 2.5 hours from here. But I know several other people got together, so it was kind of sad not to hang out with everybody, but I really wanted to see the elephant twin babies. So that totally made it worth it, though. They're adorable.
So when you're not going on trips to the Florida Keys and Niagara Falls, what do you like to do in your free time? What are your interests and hobbies?
I like to read a lot of books. I like to read a lot of romantic comedies, some mysteries and psychological thrillers. I hang out with my niece and nephew a lot.
What's one of the books you've read this year in 2023 that you really enjoyed?
Oh man, I read a lot. Like that's a hard question. I'm gonna say By a Thread by Lucy Score. It's a romantic comedy. It's not a Christian book. I'll just throw that out there. But the story of it just really kind of touches me. The heroine's dad actually has dementia, so that really touched me, like feeling her struggle with her dad and what that disease does. And so just the way it tied in with everything and how hard she struggled, but yet she just kept going and kept persevering. So this author writes a lot of very strong heroines and strong characters, so it always makes it interesting.
Now, you've been to a lot of events. Do you have any favorite events that stick out in your mind?
Key West is my favorite. I do like that one. My very first CICS event was the Wolf Sanctuary, Wolf Park up north, so that was kind of fun. I liked that. What else? We did just do the Cincinnati Zoo. I hadn't planned on leading it, but I did, and it was a ton of fun. Thankfully, everybody let me play tour guide Barbie and just word vomit everywhere of all the useless information I know about the Cincinnati Zoo and animals there that I've learned over the past 10 years. So that was a lot of fun. So those are probably my favorite. But I've also decided I'm retiring in Key West now. So I'm moving to the Florida Keys in 10 years. That's it.
I could see myself doing that too.
Yeah, I'm living out of a camper as a tiny home. Like I've already got it set and planned. Like that's it. That way when a hurricane comes, I can just pack up and move my house, and then I'm safe. And then I go back down to the Keys. So that's what I'm doing.
Now, what has God taught you during your hardships and during the low points of your life?
I have to trust, and I have to follow His plan, and I can't force His plan before His timing. I've also been taught that if I get too big for my britches, He will gladly humble me, because I've always welcomed Him into my life to give me that guidance, and always give me that guidance. Like, even if I'm mad or even if I'm not thinking about it, I don't want him to leave me or never feel like that he's not welcome to guide me in those things. So that's one of those things, is that he'll humble me, and he's always got my back even when I don't feel it.
Mm-hmm. Heather, how should we react when a Christian falls into sin?
I think you have to be loving. Even if, yes, it's sin, so we don't agree with it. However, you have to be loving about it. If you go up and you're coming off as very judgmental or condemning, that person's not going to listen to you, and then that could even turn them away further. If you're going to that person in love and talking to them about it, 9 times out of 10, they're already going to know it's a sin and that they don't want to live that way. But it's one of those things that if you're coming down harshly, you could very easily turn that person away from Christ. And then how are you going to answer for that when your judgment day comes? Mm-hmm. So God calls us to love the Lord your God, and then love your neighbor as you love yourself. Like, love is that common denominator, and that's what we have to do. So don't come over harshly. Even if you want to, take that breath and pray that the Spirit leads you to say the right things at the right time for that person. And you may not be the right person to talk to that individual about that. But the best thing you can do is just love them and let them know that, hey, I am here for you. And if you need to talk, we can talk. But I need you to let me pray about this as well, so that way I know I'm doing the right thing by you as well. So just love them.
Mm-hmm. Heather, what makes a guy attractive to you other than good looks?
A French accent, apparently. I'm kidding. My first border guard in Canada was French. It was awesome. But anyway, I'm just kidding. For me, I want to see how he treats not in this order. I want to see how he treats his parents. I want to know, like, how faithful is he with going to church? Do you just go to attend, or do you actually, like, absorb the word and try to live that word? I don't expect anybody to ever be perfect, because none of us are. We will always fall short. But I want to see how he reacts with his family, and if he has pets, I want to know how he reacts to pets. I've learned through a negative experience in my life that how a man tends to treat a dog or a cat is typically how he's going to treat family and people as well. So if he's got an animal, I want to know how he treats them. And then honestly, like, just if he gives good hugs, like, that can be attractive on a physical level, but just, you want that person to make you feel safe, but you also want to be able to trust that person, because as a woman who's supposed to, submit to your husband biblically, and let your husband lead your home, that person has to make you feel safe enough to do that. Especially if you've been single for a long time, or you've had negative relationships. Being able to give away that trust is huge, and you have to be able to trust that individual. So for me, just being able to see how they interact with their family and how they take care of, nieces, nephews, whatever, how welcoming they are of my family. I love my family, but I will be the first one to tell you that we all get on each other's nerves, but we love each other. So, but it's how you treat people, and how is your Jesus showing in all of those situations.
So, I'm going to ask you about this. These buttons have been floating around, and I see people wearing them. Tell us the story behind these buttons.
I don't remember it was after somebody had gone to the art craft, and I had gone to the Little Mermaid musical, and I was joking with Emily about we needed, like, sashes or something to say CICS, because everybody recognizes Michael's face, but when he's not at an event, sometimes people that are new to the group don't know anybody else besides Michael's face, and it's hard for them to find us in these large areas. And so Emily and I were joking about it, and I decided to start making them. So I made a few sashes, just if somebody wanted to wear one, just to be like, hey, it's me right here, this is a group. And then I got the idea to start making buttons, because my local library had a button maker, and I hadn't made any since, like, 4th grade. And I said, this is going to be perfect, because you can just, like, pin it on your jacket, you can leave it in your car or whatever. And then that way people can kind of look for the buttons and see. I had realized after the Little Mermaid event that there was another movie event at the Art Craft, And there was somebody that had posted in there of, hey, you know, I described exactly what I was wearing, and nobody found me. And I felt really bad for him, because when you put yourself out there to meet new people that you've never met, never talked to, never anything, that it's kind of hurtful to not be included. And I know that was never anybody's intent. So the buttons came about in order to try to help find people when you're new to the group, and you can find somebody that's in the group and just kind of pair with them in order to help find other people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I remember that happening.
Yeah. So we don't want it to keep happening by any means. So if people want buttons, all they have to do is say something. I can whip some out. So.
Heather, do you have any word of encouragement for people who are members of our group, but they've never been to an event because they're scared, or maybe they're just going through a really hard time in their singleness right now?
Mm-hmm.
How would you encourage those people?
Find an event you think you're going to enjoy, whether you like the people there or not. So I know that sounds kind of but find something that you are going to find joy in and go anyway. Even if you know nobody there, even if you know you don't mesh with somebody, you never know the other people you can mesh with. I've met several other people in the group that at first I was a little hesitant, and I was a little shy about going up and talking to random people. And my first event, like, I had several people come up and talk to me, and they were very kind. And then I had a couple people I was trying to strike up a little bit of a conversation with, and they kind of blew it off. And it was just like, okay, cool, and move on. Don't let it hurt your feelings, because it's not intentional. Sometimes people are just focused on other things, and they're not thinking the same way you are. But find that event that you are going to have a lot of joy in, regardless of who you talk to, and then just kind of go. I have noticed that a lot of times people that have been at events for a while, they will be pretty outgoing and start talking to other people that they realize are in the group but they've not met before. So just come and find something you really like. For me, if it's an animal event, I'm probably going to be there. So it's kind of rare if I don't go. It'd have to be a scheduling conflict for me not to, but if it's a zoo or an animal or something, I'm probably going to go, because I'm going to enjoy it no matter who's there.
Last question.
Mm-hmm.
Since you are the single of the month for May,
Mm-hmm.
how can we pray for you?
I always hate this question. Like, I'm one of those people that I don't ask for prayer a whole lot. Like, I have a couple people that if I'm really, I almost have to feel desperate. It's something that I'm working on, that I learned through the Safe People, that I have to also show vulnerability to those that are closest to me. I can't always expect my best friend to say, hey, I need you to pray for me, I'm having a terrible day, but then me never do that with her, because she knows I have bad days too. So I would say ways to pray for me this month would be having a tighter focus on God. I'm struggling to truly act to put him first in my life, not just think of him first in my life, but to like put down the phone and stop playing the games and read something that's going to be spiritually beneficial before I start doing all this other stuff, or before I start watching TV or reading for leisure. Like, I want to develop a tighter and closer relationship with God. So that would be the one thing I would say that people could pray for. If they have a minute, then that would be great.
Okay. All right, everyone. This is Heather Dollarhide. She's the female single of the month for May 2023. Please pray for her and engage her in conversation next time you see her at an event. Thank you, Heather.